Hey everyone, welcome to another episode from Ampro Engineering. What we're going to talk about this time is something that has annoyed me for years. And what I am talking about is the installation of a number of these older Novack speed controls because of the peculiar power switches they have. So you can see that on this car there is a perfectly good spot to mount the power switch. Unfortunately, there's simply no way to do that. On some of my other cars, and while I talk, I'm going to pop this off here. On some of my other cars, I have simply just cut the power switch off and replaced it with something that's more suited to this application. Unfortunately, when I've got something that's in such good shape like this ESC, cutting off the power switch is simply not an option for me. It's not something that I want to do. Because I've got an abundance of not only these little square ones, but also these guys right here, which I think are by far the worst offenders. There's also an earlier version of this that we'll talk about. I have developed a number of these little adapters, and I've got 3 different versions. This is the style for the original Novack ESC. Part number is up right now, and the image that you see is currently what the original ESCs have. The second generation here is used with these adapters, and the last version of these kind of square ones. There is an orange variant of this as well, but I believe the geometry is slightly off, so this is not going to work with the orange version. So the first vehicle up is my Roadrunner. Now this has the original style of power switch. This is a Novack T1 that is in this car. As you can see, there's nothing under here. In fact, I don't even know where the power switch is. It's probably jammed somewhere. It's right here, but now I can't get it out. So I'm going to take the body off and let's fix this. So here is the adapter that we're going to use, and here's the switch. Now the first thing that's important to note is which way you want the on and off switch to operate. In some cases there may be something embossed in the plastic, or you might have a decal, so just make note of that. In this case, I don't have that. The main issue is because it has this boss here, it can't go in both ways. Like in this car here, it must be oriented like this. The preparation for this is pretty simple. What you have to do is clean out the gap here, because this is designed to flex, and if the gap is full of plastic, which this one is here, it won't properly compress and it won't squeeze on the speed control. So that now has some flex here, and the point of this is to kind of squeeze and crush the heat shrink on the switch so that it stays in place. As usual, we're going to have to clean these holes out. Now the hole is designed to be 1.75 millimeters. So I'm just going to take a 1.5 and just kind of tidy it up. I'm just moving it around just a little bit to make sure that we have no sediment in there. You can see a tiny bit falling out, and that's really all there is to it. The same thing is going to be necessary for the other ones as well. All right, so we're going to go ahead and push this over this, like so. And I'm going to have it so that the front of the switch is not protruding beyond this face. To tighten this up, we do need a M2 machine screw. I often say M2, and where they're commonly located on these old Tamiyas is on the 3-piece wheel. So that's a pretty easy place to find those. And just slip it right in there. Now it's not going to be necessary to over torque this thing at all, so the machine screw is going to be just fine. So just turn it in until it closes this gap, and the switch is pretty nicely tucked in here, okay? Next, we're just going to drop it in, and same thing over here. These are also M2s. Anybody who has ever installed the power switch screws on one of these Hornets knows that it is utterly, oh God, it is utterly impossible to do so at the best of times, let alone through a camera. All right, so one screw is in there, and then we'll just thread this in from the back. Okay, there we go. Oops, let's back that off a tad. All right, both screws are now snugged in, and as you can see, I now have access to the power switch in the location it was designed to be. And of course, flipping it over here, you can see it's just held in beautifully with that adapter. So the next vehicle up here is Project Mud Blaster. You can see, can you see? No, you can't. Where is it? Oh, you can right here. You can see that the power switch has just been dangling about because really there's no place to put it. Let's remedy this. This vehicle has the second style of on and off switch, which if anything is worse than the first. So for this one, we have this little guy here. It's a little shorter. I'm not in love with how it goes on. I mean, it goes on tight enough. I just wish I had some way of of decreasing the load that's put on the backside of this. Unfortunately, I couldn't think of a way to simply make this with a single part instead of having multiple components, which has driven up the price to ridiculous amounts. So this is what we're going to work with here. As before, make sure that you do clean out this gap. That's going to be critical. Just using the backside of the razor blade, just kind of get some of this crud out of here from the printing process. Make sure you clean the holes like before, and we will just push it on. This switch is got to be careful because it's got some of the heat shrink is coming off this, so I don't want to mess it up any more than it already is. Okay, there are two sides to this. There's a larger hole on this side and a smaller hole here on this side. The larger hole is where the screw is going to go in because we're going to thread into the smaller hole. Again, all you want to do is just close that gap. And that'll squeeze it just enough to really lock it in there. So now we have on and off. Let's put a bracket here and get this in. Comically, I cannot find any of my red power switch retainers for the ORV, so I'll have to stick with this gray one for now. Okay, I think we got it this time. Son of a... Anyways, you can see I can now turn it on and off with ease. It's kind of unfortunate the switch is so small, but still it's pretty simple to just get your finger in there. Of course, I don't know if it's on or off, but all right. I finally have a home for this switch. Last and thankfully least is going to be the square switch here. This one is going to be the simplest, but it's important to note that this is a larger hole than this one here. To install this, you actually have to push it in, and there's a little clip here. These are little spring fingers. So that prevents it from basically pushing back out. So we're going to push it in, like so. Okay, and now it's stuck in here. So we're going to take another one of these M2s, push it straight through. There's not much wall thickness here. So all you need to do is basically screw it in until it stops. Do not apply any more load on this. And now you've got an incredibly secure area for your switch. I finally have a reasonable way to mount this. All right, let's do this again. And this is, for some reason, infinitely easier than the other two cars. That is it. Okay, power switch. Bolt it right in. These are available in lots of colors, and the black one would make it blend in a little bit nicer. But then if it's black, it's harder for you folks to see it. Well, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. I know this seems like kind of a minor thing, but in many cases, a lot of these older cars have such a nice place to put your power switch, and you seem to be subject to double sticking it to some weird place, or worse yet, a zip tie. So I'm glad that now the power switch has a very permanent home right here. Just so you know, these come 4 to an order. The cost differential is so slight that it's actually cheaper to get 4 than it is to even get 1. I think the price increase is like $3, so it's not a big deal. I do plan on expanding my power switches to a number of other more modern Novack ESCs. Unfortunately, I really don't have much other than Novak and some kind of off brands, but even those have standard power switches. So if there's a particular switch that you're interested in me doing, please reach out. I'm definitely curious in seeing what else is available out there, especially some of those older Tikins and LRP units. Please subscribe. I've got a lot of new stuff coming up soon. In fact, I've got a Shapeways order due in the next couple of days, so I cannot wait until that package comes in. Please subscribe if you have not already, and by all means, leave any comments if you have any questions. I'm always interested in hearing your thoughts. Before you take off, please check out the band Blue Pinto. They allow me to use their songs in my videos, and the link to their Facebook is in the end credits. And everybody, thanks again.